So I promised you guys a lesbian, and today I've got a lesbian.
He's unbothered.
What's up, everybody? Thai Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, today I bring to you somebody that I really do respect in the comedy world. This person is one of my biggest disappointments in the comedy world at the same time, because I'm going to be very clear about this. This person used to, or at least I was told, I don't know if this was factual, we'll find out right now, but I was told that this person identified as non-binary. And because I like this person, because I've told you guys, if I really like somebody, if I respect somebody, I will try my best. So I tried to remember the they and them pronouns with this person. And then she gave up on me. She quit with the non-binary and ruined my life and my faith in the non-binary community. So now every time you see me say that I'm not doing the non-binary, this person is the reason. Everybody give it up for the one and only Arielle Isaac Norman.
Thank you. Well, let's just clear this up. I've literally never identified as non-binary.
Well, then
That was just always been a vicious rumor about me that people have been trying to, that's like they're trying to be sweet. But I mean, I literally, even just the other day, I was out with some friends, like my actual friends, you know, and we were at a bar, and some fan of mine, like somebody I've never met, you know, like comes up to and then starts talking. I think I had talked to them for a minute and, you know, been like, oh, okay, cute. And then they were talking to my friends and they were talking about me. And then, you know, my actual friend was like, well, she blah, blah, blah. And then they corrected my friend and we're like, oh, it's they, them. And my friend's like, I don't think so. But this is the kind of shit, like, why are you? I literally tell this joke over and over again when I say, I'm good with she, her. I prefer to be thought of as a woman, except in the bedroom. You know what I mean? I have told that joke over and over. It's gone viral on Instagram. And then I'll get off stage and people are like immediately theming me or something, you know?
Well, I don't remember who told me. I met you, if you remember, I met you way back the first time I ever came to Austin, which was before I was even thinking about living here, no plan. And I did Backyard Sluts. Are you still part of Backyard Sluts, or do you guys
It's just on hiatus. I hope we bring it back, but Candace got so busy. I was already so busy. The whole thing was that, like, I was like, if you can do like most of the work, then we can do this show. But at this point, we need an intern.
And so now you're just Gay Enough.
Gay Enough, yeah.
Gay Enough is Arielle's show that's every Tuesday. Is it an 8 p.m. show?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. show every Tuesday at the East Austin Comedy Club.
We now call it East Austin Comedy.
Oh, it's just East Austin
Yes.
Comedy.
Otherwise, Uber will take them to the old place.
Okay. So East Austin Comedy. So you guys don't get taken to the old place. But that show is very fun. If you guys are ever in Austin on a Tuesday night and looking for something to do, it's a very fun show. But I met you because, you know, I met you briefly when I did Backyard Sluts, however many years ago. And then I officially met you in 2020 when you did my comedy festival, Laughed Out.
Yeah, January. It was like right before the pandemic.
Yeah, like 1 month before everything shut down. And somebody had told me, I guess, you know, maybe it was one of my co-producers, Jocelyn or Steven, had told me that you were non-binary. And that's when non-binary was still new enough that I hadn't soured on it yet. You know, I hadn't had it. Because I'll usually give anything a chance.
Yeah.
I'll give it a minute. And then once it turns out.
We've tried a lot of pronouns out in our community. We've gone through a whole thing. And, you know, let's see if we were seeing about the non-binary. Well, I don't think anyone could make the logic cohesive. So until that, you know what I mean? Too many like trans rights do compete with non-binary conceptions. So until that's ironed away, like I don't feel the need to really truly like think anything is valid, since there's nothing that's logically sound yet.
Yeah, and that's what I had a problem with, is it really just didn't make sense to me. And I've tried to listen to what people have said, but the people get so mad, and that's one of the problems I have with the community right now. Is like, if somebody asks me about gay, and I've told this on stage before, if somebody asks me about gay, I will talk to them like they're a child, like I'm explaining it to a kid that really doesn't know. And you shouldn't be explaining this to anybody's kids but your own. But I will treat that adult like they're a kid, and I'll just explain it to them. I don't mind. And so I don't know how people want, and gay is pretty basic, so the explaining gets to be less and less, even though I still do redneck clubs when I'm out, and so there is some that still has to happen. But when it comes to non-binary and even a lot of new school trans, they jump to getting angry and they won't explain it, and it's like, well, then where do you expect people to find this out?
That's why I say we can't even get our story straight in the queer world. So why would regular people be able to understand it? And then you're not allowed to ask questions. And then, yeah, it's like, okay, so if it's not your job to educate the person and they're not supposed to ask questions, whatever, then so you want them to Google it. But depending on their algorithms, you're just as likely to be sending them to stuff that you're really not going to want them to read. So how is this going to work out for anyone?
And how many things do we plan to Google that once we get to the computer, we forget to Google?
It's not anyone's job to educate anyone, I guess, unless you're being paid for it, but it's your opportunity. And if you really care about wanting to get your message and you have this thing that matters to you and someone's genuinely asking a question, like I get it if you think that someone is asking a question in a way that's actually hostile or they're just trying to catch you in something. But if someone's like, hey, help me understand this, and you're like, it's not my job to educate you. It's like, okay, yes, technically. You could ask for money, though. Say, hey, I'll educate you, but I need $20.
Yeah, give me a couple dollars. Buy me a coffee.
It is my time. Buy me a buy me a drink.
You can maybe put the little leaf in it,
Jerk me off.
When you order the coffee and they do the design on the top.
Yeah, something.
Maybe something like that, But yeah, but I do agree with that completely. That you're right. It's not our job to educate, but it is the opportunity. You do have the opportunity, and if you really want to see things change, you should take that opportunity. Like with me, because I do jokes about trans and everything else, I will get people asking me genuine questions about trans after the show, and I will tell them. I don't mind just telling them.
You and I love talking.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. It's like, okay, if you don't like doing the education, but you have a friend who's a chatty Cathy like us, send them up. Well, you might not want to send them our way, depending on your ideas, but you might have some other friend who likes talking about it. Send them their way.
But I actually feel like, even though, because Arielle is in a similar position to me, in that, well, here's the deal: Arielle's younger than I am. So
not that much,
but enough that you came in at a point where you were able to be a little bit more patient for a little bit longer than I was.
Oh, sure.
I think. And it was because, I came up with old school trans people, and it was very basic with them as far as what they wanted.
Yeah.
Where new school have all these rules that they want you to abide by. And so I just mentioned that you're younger because I remember when I first, not even when I first got here, actually right before I got here. I remember that was when you were still expressing some patience with some of the silliness that was going on. What made you get kind of tired of, I guess, the ridiculous part? Because I don't think either of us are what you would call transphobic or don't like trans people.
I think it would be very hard to level a real claim of transphobia against either of us. I mean, it's like patently ridiculous at some point, but I've been friends with trans people for a long time too, not as long as you, but I actually really didn't know that many in college. There were some I kind of knew a little, but not too well. But once I was doing comedy here in Austin in 2015, I started making friends with, there were 3 different trans women here at the time. We've had some come and go since then, but there was one I was particular friends with, and we did a podcast for 7 years called Gender Fluids, and just a really disgusting, irreverent podcast about sex and gender and kinks and fetishes, and we really explored my gender, and we really, it's it was a whole thing, and I loved her. I still do. But over the years, because she was so easy to talk to about all this stuff, because I really like being able to, call a spade, just be able to talk about things realistically. And she didn't have any of that kind of censoriousness. She would talk about her dick. She wouldn't, she was able to talk about biology and things in a real way. And so, and we both had very dark, fucked up senses of humor. And so we had a great time, talking to each other, and we're like, let's start a podcast. I mean, we worked together a lot. And, I kind of started noticing in 2016 and 2017, some things changing. Like basically when Trump got elected, there was this moment where I was like, well, hey, I think the liberals are kind of starting to get really annoying to a lot of people, and maybe we should figure out how we're kind of being mean and bullying, and when you're assholes, no one wants to listen to you. Maybe we should like figure that out. And her thing was like, no, we got to circle the wagons and just point to the red team and go, you're stupid and bad and mean and racist and transphobic and whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a losing strategy, I think. And then by 2017, one time on our podcast, I was trying to say something about biology, something about how, she's biologically male, but with hormones, you make yourself more phenotypically female, whatever. And she was like really upset and told me that it was like mean, basically. At that point, it was still, she wasn't saying it wasn't true. She was just saying it's mean to say. And I remember just being like, this is troubling, because if I need to be able to have language so that people know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So
that I know what we're saying, so that you know. And so then, I started noticing in the culture, things were shifting to biological sex isn't real, or trans women saying I am biologically female. I mean, you see this stuff about periods and stuff. And all this being said, there's so many different people who are in the trans umbrella who believe all kinds of different things, and some are taking hormones and some aren't, and some have dysphoria and some don't, and there's every different combination going on. But more and more, I think there was a radicalizing, and I was always watching it with wariness, and I'm always making my jokes because I'm a devil's advocate, contrarian kind of person, and so I was always from the inside questioning things to some extent, but also really helping conservatives to see I want everyone to see everyone else's perspective. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I try to do with my comedy. A lot of times I'm making fun of two things at once, and a lot of people don't realize that, and they just see the one thing I'm making fun of. And so by 2020, when everyone was super online, JK Rowling lost her temper, and I think
I love when she loses her temper, but go ahead.
But with the first one with the tampon tweet that I think everyone in your audience is aware of, what
was a tampon tweet?
You don't know. This was because she'd gotten like in trouble a little bit before. The tampon tweet was like the line in the sand.
I love that the tampon tweet was the line.
Yeah, because before that, people had noticed she had liked some tweets that were like a little bit gender critical.
Yeah.
And I think they knew. Yeah, just it was a little bit of stuff like that, but and actually, I think maybe before the tampon tweet was the one where she said you should be able to love whoever you want, wear whatever you want, be whoever you dress or whatever, all this, but saying that you'll lose your job if you say that a biological man is female, whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
I stand with Maya Forstater, that thing. And what people don't understand in America is like Britain was in a very different place about this stuff than we were at the time. We've just been kind of, in some ways you could say, a few years behind them in terms of figuring out what's going on and what the problems are. And our feminists are kind of dumber here, I think. Like, British people are generally a little more well-read and things.
Yeah.
And so we have really intelligent people here, but we have a lot of not intelligent people here. It's our feminists are busy doing all kinds of nonsense. And so she was clearly pretty upset and really engaged with these topics in a way that like your average like good liberal around in America is kind of like not paying that much attention to like the actual issues with the trans stuff. And so she had obviously lost her temper one day when there was an article that was about how in this time during COVID, maybe this is May, June of 2020, in this COVID-y time, everyone's like so concerned about mailing masks out to poor people and this or that, but you've forgotten that like poor women still, like we've actually like dropped off donations to all these other things. Like, so there's all these poor women who now don't have access to tampons and pads and things like that. I don't know if they have Diva Cups in Africa or what, but
yeah.
They didn't have enough of anything. And so it was an article about that, but they didn't use the word woman. It was all like people who menstruate, all that kind of stuff. And that, of all of the things that people get upset about, that kind of stuff is my least give a shit kind of thing, because I'm like, for one, it's kind of funny, and also sometimes it is true, because we do use the word woman in a lot of different ways in a lot of different contexts. And so sometimes I think it's annoying to belabor that language, but for that to be the thing that like makes people have to, burn their Harry Potter tattoos off their bodies or whatever. It's like, so she tweets like, oh, it's weird. I feel like we used to have a word for people who menstruate. Was it wamud, wampoon, whatever? And so that was the tweet that says,
Okay, so that
war.
let everybody know where she stood. That was when.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I get it, but like you're being pretty catty. Like it's not funny enough. Do you know what I mean? Like if it had been like really funny and like a really good point, I think, okay, that would have been super cool. But that's my one thing with JK. I'm like, I feel your pain. I agreed when she put out her little statement, I think it was very reasonable. I think for the most part, anybody who actually read it should have probably been like, yeah, that all makes sense. She's not a transphobe, but, and the response that she got was, suck my girl cock. What are we allowed to say on you?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
We can say girl cock on YouTube.
Yeah.
And a lot. And yeah, I think that, the trans people being mad at her has pushed her further and further to being like so anti-trans. It's one thing to be, I think you and I try to be really like, let's question what's going on, and not question, but we have real criticisms and real kind of advice and suggestions and where we think things should be that are not necessarily the trans orthodoxy. But, instead of her really being like, and using her position and power to be this real voice of reason, like I said, be really funny and cutting, say things that are like high level advanced, like you could be talking to all kinds of people and getting the best essay written. Instead of really doing that, she just kind of like fires off this shitty tweet, and then, I
think she's what happens when you don't have a close connection with trans people, but you have had trans friends, like kind of club friends and that kind of thing. So it's easier for a person like her to get to the point where she just says, fuck you all the way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I have to remind myself, because I'll get so annoyed with the people online. And sometimes I'll have to remind myself, wait a minute, you have friends for 30 years that are trans, and you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but if you don't have that, if you're a person that maybe is more on the periphery, you're more likely to get like, yeah, I don't care. Because there have been moments where I have said things online where I'm just like, yeah, well, you're all men and that's just what it is, because it's the wrong day. I have other shit going, and I'm annoyed because in some cases, like in cases like that, it's usually been when I've either been trying to explain something in a very logical way, or it was a complete joke.
Yeah, no, I think when you use the word men right there, it's kind of what I'm saying about how sometimes we use the word woman in different ways and different times, because sometimes when you say men, you mean males.
Yeah.
And it's just the same way when we're like, okay, if we're going to really label sports, we need to say males and females instead of men's and women's. That's what we always meant. They just used to be synonymous. But we need to be, sometimes we do, like, I don't know if we need to say people who menstruate every time. I think it's fine. Trans people can figure out whether they menstruate or not, or whether they're women or not in that context. Like some female, people born female, whatever, like they also don't menstruate. So it's not like women can't figure that out. And if you still feel like a woman, whether you menstruate or not, good for you. That doesn't have anything to do with the article. But sometimes when people say women, like, at a comedy show, oftentimes there'll be someone on stage saying like, hey, where are the women at? And then people clap, and then they go, okay, you know how you're sucking a dick, whatever. And so they're in other times when they're like, hey, where are my men? Oh, you know how you're fucking a girl. And it's like, sometimes they mean me when they say men, and they don't mean me when they say women. And there's a million different versions of that. And so sometimes we're using it poetically. Sometimes we're using it, it to mean biologically. Sometimes we use it in all these different ways. And so I don't really see why we can't sometimes be more specific, like when it makes sense to be more specific about what kind of people, like people with uteruses, because sometimes that is what's the operating function of the word, and other times everyone will know what you mean, and it's okay.
Yeah, well, that's where I think that on both sides, like, this is why political correctness exists, really. It's because the average person, and I consider most of you to be above average. Don't prove me wrong in the comments. But the average person is smart enough to figure out where they belong. Like you just gave those examples. I realize when they're not talking about me when they say men. And
I don't write
get
a Yelp
offended.
review.
Yeah, I don't.
There was a comic who said women, you know what? Not everyone fucks men or whatever. Not everyone
how
wears
dare
high
you
heels.
just assume I don't suck a dick because
From
I'm a
now on.
man.
And especially with comedians. We need to be able to talk in generalizations.
Well, yeah. No, and so I get it, but also that's why political correctness had to be there and might still have to be there, is because stupid people just can't figure out that you can decide whether or not you want to include yourself on certain things. You know, like most things that would be supposed, or that most people would think are supposed to offend me, I just don't even include myself in. Like, I hear them and then I immediately just kind of rule myself out in the way where, like, oh, they're not talking to me. You know, they clearly didn't. And that'll even be gay things, you know, where people will say gay people are this particular way. And I'll just be like,
They
in
mean
my
queer.
head, like, not me, you know?
Well, I mean, this is one of my little things right now, is because you know how there's this like LGBT drop the T movement. And I think you talked about this a little bit in a recent video, but I'm very much like LGBT drop the Q. I love trans people. I've always wanted trans people in my community. I'm not like, yeah, we are fucking weird in the in a similar way. Sexuality, gender, there's always been overlap between sexuality and gender. Everyone knows the gay guys are kind of girls and the gay girls are kind of boys, some of us.
Yeah.
Whatever. We all use pronouns in a fun, artistic way, whatever. We were always gender bending. So I think the overlap, and if you're trans, you're inherently gay, right? Or bi or what, something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're no matter who you date, there's going to be something gay about it.
Adam Barnhart, who you had on Gay Enough not too long ago, he used to have a joke that I used to love where he would say, I don't give a fuck what it is. If you're gay, you're trans, you're any of that shit, there's a glitch, you know, because he talks with that accent.
Yeah.
And being a gay man and him being a gay man, in my head, I was always like, yeah, there is kind of a glitch. No matter what you are, you're outside of the norm. It's a glitch.
Yeah, I've never understood why people are so offended about like talking about whether people are normal or not.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you want to sometimes be not normal? Like everyone knows you want to sometimes be not normal. So if someone calls you other people normal, or you not, like, yeah, I'm not normal in a bunch of ways. Sometimes I'm normal.
Ever since I reached adulthood, I had no interest in being normal.
Right.
Like when I was a kid, you know, I think every kid wants to be normal. And I think that's why I eventually just was like, yeah, I don't want to be that. Because I realized after, you know, years of being a kid that I'm never going to be normal. Yeah. And it's not even about gay. It's just about the way my brain works and the way everything about me just isn't normal.
Right.
And so, and then, you know, if you look at me now, it's like, I'd have a lot of nerve trying to identify as normal.
Right.
You know, people would be like, no.
You should put that in your bio. Normal. Just a normal guy.
Yeah, you are a lot of things, but you are not normal.
Run of the mill, normal, regular dude.
Yeah, I think that would be more offensive than me telling people I'm gay. You know, it's like being.
Yeah, where we're like, you're misgendering yourself.
Yeah. Now I've truly been misgendered once I've been identified as normal. But yeah, so I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I think a lot of times people assume that because you're somewhere under the umbrella of LGBT, and my thing with the LGBTQ thing that you were just referencing, what I am going to make a video about is I want to do LGBT, keep the T, drop the Q, but turn the T back into transsexual.
Exactly. T is transsexual, and then it's the Q plus is its own thing.
Yeah, and then the transgenders can go with the
whichever
Q plus.
way. Exactly. Some trans people are queer, and some trans people are not.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about it. Some lesbians are queer and some aren't. Some gay people are queer and some aren't. Whatever. Anybody putting anything. But if you're Q plus, we need a little bit of a divorce. It can be an amicable divorce. Doesn't mean I hate them all, but it's just like, I don't really want to be automatically associated with that, because people are going to think about things in stereotypical ways, you know, like, and when they see me and they judge me, I'm like, I don't want to be lumped in with that. And I think there's very much like some LGBT people like really don't want to be lumped in with that, and others like that's their whole thing. So it's like, great, but let's just kind of have a LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
And you can kind of tell, like right now you can't dye your hair purple, green, pink, or blue because everyone will assume you're in the Q plus community.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There are some cis people, there's some whatever, not Q plus people who would like to do that, and they know like, well, this is not the time because I don't want to be associated with that Q plus shit.
Well, it sucks because if you're Gen X, those were always the fun people when we were young. Was the bright hair, like those were always the cool people. So now to see those same hair colors and be like, is this bitch gonna be a problem? You know what I mean?
I was just hearing a story about this woman who like found somebody online, like in Clubhouse, and then she reached out to him on Twitter, and like they were attracted to each other, but he friend zoned her and wouldn't date her for a while because she had purple hair, and he assumed that she was like actually like there to kind of like double agent him or something.
Yeah.
And so it took like months for her to convince him, like, no, like I just like dyeing my hair for
normal.
fun.
I'm normal. Don't rule me out.
She's like, I don't have a nose ring. I mean, come on.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those that to look at me, I could go either way.
Well, I think because you have the nose ring and you're a guy and you have several things going on, like I think the gestalt is very different. But if you're female and you have a nose ring, we know a lot about your politics probably. Which sucks because nose ring girls just used to be... Can we say sluts on YouTube?
Yeah, you say whatever you want. Anything that's too much, I'll bleep or whatever.
Okay.
Whatever you want, say it. I mean, like, but I
so funny. It feels like being on NPR again. You know what I mean? What can we say on this?
Yeah, no, say whatever you want because also, like, once you get a certain amount into the video, it's a lot looser, so it doesn't really matter, But yeah, and this is like, an hour-long podcast at the very least. So, I mean, just be free. And like I said, if anything's like whatever, I'll just bleep it. And that's the minimum amount of editing I'm doing. Like everybody that watches my podcast knows.
Yeah.
Like, I will bleep the stuff that YouTube will get mad at me for. But outside of that, it's just whatever.
Yeah.
I would prefer have no rules, but Rumble just doesn't pay enough.
Right.
There's not enough big.
Do you still put stuff on Rumble?
No, I did like one or two reposted one or two of my videos from YouTube, but I just don't have time for that many, and right now the other one that's actually kicking out some real money, but not for me yet. I haven't reached monetization, but Twitter X, that's the one that's like giving real money right now.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I had a friend that's like, their first month getting paid on X, they made $800.
Like doing the Tucker Carlson kind of thing, putting videos up there?
Short videos and tweets, but like only, minute, 2 minute long videos, not full length. Oh. But, they made $800, which is a lot on your first month being monetized anywhere, because usually with YouTube, I remember for YouTube for a long time, it would take me forever to make the $100 minimum to actually get paid out. But yeah, so, whatever you say is fine. I'm just glad we're having the conversation because, after a while, did you see the Blair White video where she went to Pride?
I saw some of it.
Yeah,
just
it's
a
very
clip
recent.
Of it, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like, that's a good example to me of how crazy things have gotten when a trans woman with a microphone makes you think that there's a reason for like, security to actually detail them.
Yeah, well, she's very vocal about her political differences with people who have become, which is again why I would like two different parades, right? I don't even care about the parade at all, but I would like two different celebrations. Like I want to go to events where I'm like, this is specifically not queer, like this is gay, because queer people insist on you having, like the purity tests, kind of orthodox politics. If she likes Trump, she likes guns, whatever, much less her, she'll read trans women and whatever, all that kind of stuff. That makes her an enemy and an apostate. And so they don't want her there. And I'm like, that's fine. Like there can be a cultish type of Q plus community. And I use the word cultish very loosely. Well, there's a lot of cultish dynamics in our society, but they have a cultish little thing going on and they should be able to do that. But like we should be able to have events where we can market it. That's why I call mine the Gay Enough Show, right? And you
Yeah.
just do the queer. When someone says it's queer, like actually correct them, you know, which I don't want to be weird, but I'm just like, it's just not the vibe. And I'll even tell audiences sometimes, because I've always been kind of weeding out certain kind of audience people that I don't want there. I don't want people who are going to be offended at stuff. I like to book all kinds of people. I don't just book gay comics. I only book the funny gay comics, unless I, you know, owe them a favor.
Yeah, that happens.
But I try to only book funny people, and like I want to book the bad. You know, I like what kind of comedy I like. So, and I like to expose a lot of fun gay people like real comedy, and so I never want it to be this queer thing. I think that word has just taken on a whole thing. You know, there was one point where maybe it could have worked out as a catch-all term, but now it's so loaded with bad vibes for me.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't want people to ever think that I'm going to want to argue with them as soon as we chat.
Right.
You know, which is what queer means now.
Right.
It's like, okay.
I'm not going to police your language.
Yeah, I don't know where the argument's going to come in, but it's coming. You know,
Right.
as soon as somebody says they're queer, I'm just like, all right.
I don't want you to watch your words around me.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. It's like, so I feel like that's why I've never wanted people to, like, if people use they them for me, it's not like a big problem unless they are like making a big deal about it.
Yeah.
Or if they correct themselves or they correct someone else, like that's definitely, because it's not even about, I don't give a shit about gender. It's about politics. You're mispoliticking me. You know, you're mischaracterizing who I am, that you're suggesting that I would have asked for they them. And it's like, no, because there's about 2 people who are they them and consider themselves conservative.
Yeah.
You know, but pretty much it's a whole political statement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a political statement also about like what you believe about gender ideology as well. I mean, not that everybody who does they them is even conscious of what they are choosing or believing in. It's just they're kind of like, oh, I'm a boyish lesbian, I better be they them. But yeah, I don't want to be presented that way. So I don't want people to call me queer, call me they them, and call me that, because I like to be androgynous politically. So if you put that shit on me, it's putting me onto a camp.
Yeah.
I'm already kind of like, people just visually are going to put me into a camp. So I want to be politically androgynous as much as possible. And then you'll hear with my words that I'm politically androgynous too. And so, but if you start labeling me as those things, it's like people just look at me and they go, oh, they, them, vegan, feminist bitch. So I don't need your help.
Yeah.
Not even that.
Yeah, you're like, I'm working against enough right now. You know, trust me, we all have our own fight. But yeah, no, well, the way I've always looked at things is I always meet people. I think most of us meet people in almost like with the intention of having some sort of relationship with them, whether that's a 5-minute relationship or being friends with them long term or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you're talking to somebody and they're filtering things out because they assume that you're a particular way, then you don't actually know what you're dealing with. Like if I'm trying to be friends with you or we're trying to build a friendship, and say you are a little bit of a homophobe,
Mm-hmm.
I want to know exactly what level you are.
Yeah.
Are you using the word fag on the regular? Are you using it in a negative way? Are you using it in a fun way? So just be exactly what you are, and then I can better assess where we're going to be at. And I've taken friends all the way from being true homophobes to being completely cool about everything, you know?
Same.
Yeah, so it's just like, how do you expect change to happen if you're going to start arguing with people the minute they say something you don't agree with? Sometimes in my head with my friends, I'll just be like, put a pin in that, you know what I mean? We'll come back to that later on when we're better friends and discuss that, you know. And there are very few things that I have a problem with. But there are certain things where I'm like, that's either going to get you fired from a job, or you're going to have people thinking you're a way that I know you're not.
Yeah.
So that's why I'll usually talk to people about things later. But again, I'll wait on that. It doesn't have to be right now.
Yeah. Oftentimes, if I'm saying something to someone, it's in the spirit of like, hey, I totally get what you're saying, but if you say that in public, you're going to get in trouble one day. It's not going to probably take that long, you know?
Yeah,
So.
well, people don't understand that.
Yeah.
They really will be, you know, there's a time that me personally did that to somebody, and it was just because they really were fucking up, and they made a video that was public where they were threatening me with a hate crime. And I was like, okay, you work for an establishment that has gay events at it throughout the year. This is not the way you should be talking. And I tried to tell them that person to person. They put out another video again saying even worse. So I just went ahead and was like, hey, everybody, check this video out. I don't think it's getting enough views. And they lost their job and completely wrecked their life. And it's like, well, I tried to tell you. And plus, you know, this was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and this person was close to my age, and it's like, at what age do you not at what age should you realize that threatening hate crimes is not the way to go?
Yeah.
Like, at some point, that's something that we should all agree on as an adult, you know, or as adults. It's like that's just not the way that you navigate the world. So yeah, I got tired of that. And, you know, also they were a nuisance on, you know, the scene that I was on, and they were not paying people. And it was that kind of situation where, you know, rather than pay somebody, they would threaten to fight them. And it's like, why are you threatening to fight people? Because they're asking you to pay them what you told them you'd pay them.
Well, I feel that, but we are not going to talk about comedy scenes. So
yeah,
just steer clear.
Yeah, no, I get it for sure. Yeah, but just, you know, that was like,
People
you know,
are there's every level of insanity. There's a lot of justified anger about money stuff, but then also sometimes it's like there will be Facebook threads of like comics from around the country where you're really quibbling about kind of like a $20 situation, and you're like, why are we could be thinking bigger than worrying about whether someone like paid you $50, but then they wanted to charge you $20 if you wanted your tape. I'm like, yeah, but if they had just paid you $30 and then you got the tape for free, would you have even thought anything? You know what I mean? You're like, I don't.
Yeah, that all gets like weird because it's so like, you know, I don't know. I feel like unless people are monetizing it, there's no reason to even really go into a lot of that. Because, you know, that's the way I really look at social media at this point. Like, people will try to argue with me on Instagram, and I'm like, I'm not arguing with you on Instagram. I don't get paid for Instagram.
Yeah.
If you want to start something with me on YouTube,
Yeah.
if we're both getting views, I'm completely down for that because we're both going to make money off of it.
Yeah.
But I almost won't do anything that doesn't have money attached to it, even if I'm not the person making the money. Like, not too long ago, a friend of mine wanted me to do his podcast. And I was like, well, where do you post the whole thing? You know, do you post the whole thing? And they were like, no, we just post clips on social media. And I was like, okay, well, is that monetized? And they said no. And I was like, okay, well, then I don't have an interest in doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't care if I'm not getting any of the money, if
Right.
you're making all the, as long as somebody's making money.
Like, why are we're jerking off together?
Yeah,
You know?
that's the way I feel about it. Like, somebody has to be making money. And so, like, I'm not about a lot of that stuff. You know, it's just like, whatever.
Oh, this just reminding me. So I finally have learned, because, you know, like on fans, you can set it up so people have to pay to talk to you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I gotta direct all these people over here because I can't be talking to all these people. Like, I have some, I don't even know to call them a trans woman because it's, I think I would say probably like more of a cross dresser, but some older person who came to a show years ago. And maybe we had a brief Facebook conversation, but then they would just go, hello, hey, hi, you know, sometimes a few minutes apart, hours, days, whatever. And if I might engage occasionally in the beginning to be like, hey, how are you, whatever. But then it would just go, hey, hi, what's up? I need to talk to you. Hey, are you there? Come on. You know what I mean? And it's for years. I mean, I just got one the other day and finally was like, hey, dude, I'm not going to talk to you for free, but if you want to tip me every message, I'll engage with you sometimes.
Yeah. And so did you do an fans taping?
Yeah.
Okay. And so with that, you got an account, right? Or you had to start one?
Yeah, they have you get an account and like make a profile, and then you post content and talk to people.
What was the experience like of the taping?
It was pretty great. They were really kind and fun, and there was a good audience.
Where was yours?
At Creek.
Okay.
At Creek, yeah.
And then, so you did that, and then you had to have an account. So you have to have an account for a minimum after, right?
Yeah. There's like a contract, so then you get paid at the end of fulfilling the contract, and there's a bonus as well. And yeah, so it was great. It was very lucrative, and it continues to be because then it also got me a bunch of traffic to my new OnlyFans account. So I have, a lot of people on there who some are more engaged than others because I made it free to join, but it's like you have to pay to talk to me, and then I'll put out posts that you have to pay to see. So, and I mean, it's like I'll do comedy stuff sometimes like some stand up. Sometimes it's me and my girlfriend reviewing condoms, just like something like kind of sexual, but not, there'll be like, kind of pictures of things like my girlfriend massaging me in certain ways. It's like I could just kind of keep it to that because I'm like, I don't mind being like low key worker, if that's what we want to call these massage videos or whatever, or if some man wants me to like mash avocados with my feet for money, like I don't care. I don't men have fetishes sometimes. I'm like, if I don't have to like show you something I don't want to show you, I'm happy to be whatever that kind of worker is.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with.
It's an easy way to make money. It's fun. I like that men are attracted to me. I've never minded that aspect of things.
I never understood why anybody did mind people being attracted to them.
Right. Obviously, you can mind when men are harassing you and things.
Yeah, of course.
But
just
when they're just attracted to me, and if they are like telling me that I'm hot, and they have to pay to tell me that I'm hot, they have to pay to send me their dick, and I still don't even have to look at it because it's fuzzy, and whatever. I'm like, great. This is what men are for. Go out and work, and then you pay me for weird little things.
So are you allowed to talk about what the split is when somebody...
I don't remember if it's in the contract not to. I feel like it's probably best. And who knows if they change it. You know what I mean? It's one of those where they might start giving less and less as they go. So
Yeah. I just didn't know if there was...
But it was good.
Okay. And so you continue to run fans.
Yeah.
And how often would you say you'll post something that's like not worth paying for, I shouldn't say, but that you're charging for?
I try to do it once a week. Sometimes I'm gone for a few weeks, and then sometimes I post a few times in a week. But I try to kind of do a once a week thing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I had a couple of friends that were really big on fans at different points, but they weren't able to sustain it because, like, when people do it for a living, it's a lot of work.
I was gonna say the people who really do it, I mean, it can definitely be a lot of work. For me, it's just like one little source of income, but a nice little source of income that's been very handy. But I know a woman who she and her husband, like it's like all her, it's her body, it's her, I think she makes videos and all kinds of stuff. And but the men all chat with her, but like it's actually her husband chatting back with them.
Yeah, that's
so
a common one.
Because that's what men really want. Mm-hmm. It's just the object of the woman, the picture, the whatever, but to be hang out with a man.
Yeah, well, that was the part of Andrew Tate's thing.
Oh, what was his thing?
Andrew Tate.
Oh, it would be men responding back to
at first it was him and his brother because the women didn't know how to do that part.
They didn't speak English.
Well, I'm sure that was part of it, but also just they
it's just men want to respond back with the fantasy of a woman, and it's that kind of thing. So it's just like they're giving each other that back.
Yeah, and also sometimes
like
you're not going to be a hard enough salesperson.
Maybe you didn't hear my jokes.
What'd you say?
I said like they want the fantasy, like the male fantasy of a woman. I was like, it's like dating a trans woman.
Well,
big ones.
I used to have a joke about trans women giving massages the look of a woman but the hands of a man.
I would take that, maybe.
Yeah, well,
I just want a male masseuse most of the time anyway.
I hate massage.
What?
Yes, I hate it. I don't mind, like, if somebody like gives me a body rub, but like an actual massage where they get in there, no, I don't like any. I have an
ex like that. I guess that's just a thing.
You like when they get a little rough?
That's all I want all day long.
Really?
Like I could just do nothing. I'm always so sore and tense and tight and everything. Like, we found my girlfriend's great at massage in general, and I have a wonderful masseuse. Like if anyone needs a recommendation.
Her girlfriend's Asian.
My girlfriend's Asian, but we've realized that if she uses her feet, like whether sometimes she'll just bounce. That's pretty much anywhere on my body. That feels incredible. But like anything she does with her feet, it's like I think the Thai do that, right? All the little Asian. My girlfriend's Chinese, but she's.
Do you ever get reflexology?
No, is that where they like do something, poke your foot, and then it helps your shoulder or something?
Yeah, it's pretty much just concentrating on your feet, but it like that's the only kind of like because they'll be rough on that sometimes, but like reflexology is something that I really do find beneficial from time to time. I'll usually end up doing that once or twice a year, but I'm also like I'm so about the stuff that I have to do that I don't always take enough time to do the things that are just like kind of pampering yourself type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just had so much body pain stuff that I finally was like, I have to start actually pampering myself a little bit.
Did you have an accident, or were you in sports, or was there anything that it stems from?
I mean, I've played a lot of sports as an adult. And I mean, I've had some little skiing incidents and things, but nothing really. The first time when I ran a marathon, I didn't know I was signing up for one of the hilliest ones in the country. It was in Bar Harbor, Maine. And so, but like that, it was like piece by piece, my lower body was compensating for itself and then injuring. And so like ever since then, I've been kind of in and out of being able to run or get injuries and things. And I don't know. I've always been so active, but probably also not eating enough. Sometimes I don't know. I'm just really trying to figure out. And I've never slept enough. I've given up coffee. Now I just do tea, usually green tea in the morning. Like I take naps. I'm really trying to like take my health really seriously.
Yeah.
Even though I've always been active and eaten healthy foods and things. It's just like sleep is so important, and so I'm just like I'm trying to like. It's really important to me. I know, because I also I'm afraid of healthcare costs too.
Yeah, I sleep odd hours, but I do sleep. I do make sure that I get plenty of sleep. Sometimes my body just will know what I have to do, so I won't get as much sleep as I'd like to, but I don't let that go on for any period of time. It'll be just like one day where it's like, oh, I was up for 30 hours because I had so much stuff to do, and now I'm going to sleep for 12 or, that kind of thing. This is a question I've never asked you before, but it just popped in my head. Did you ever date a man?
No. Well,
Never.
No, I'm sorry. I dated a trans man for a few months.
Okay, that's enough of you. Can you please just be real for a second?
Sorry.
You are queer. I just decided. We have a traitor in our midst, ladies and gentlemen.
I did bits about how I'm like, oh, I'm legally bisexual now. They got me. They tricked me. Well, when I met him, I was doing a gay show at Cheer Up Charlie's, and then like he had seen me up on stage talking about I'm a lesbian, and then afterwards he came up and hit on me, and in my mind I was recently divorced and like newly like poly open, whatever, I was on the prowl, and so he starts hitting on me, and in my mind I was like, ooh, it's one of the little boy lesbians.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never dated one of the little boy lesbians before, this will be fun. And so but in some minutes into our conversation I say something about him being like MOC or masculine of center or something, and he's like, well I'm a boy. I'm a trans boy. Well, I'm sure he said dude or guy, but I always,
You can't help.
You can't. So then I was like, okay, hi, this is fun. Like, I really liked him.
Because you're usually the boy.
Kind of. I mean, my gender's been all over the place in relationships, honestly, but me
too. Yeah. I'm not committed.
It kind of depends on the other person.
Yep.
I just kind of, and I didn't realize how much I like femme women until recently, because what I didn't like was like boyish lesbians wearing femme clothes. That gives me dysphoria for them. Like if I see someone as kind of dude lesbianish, like tomboyish to me, and then they wear a dress, that would be like, ugh, I would be upset by that, and I had to kind of, and so now that I'm actually with a feminine woman, like I love her and I love being the guy, you know what I mean? Like it's the hottest version of things to me.
Yeah.
When I'm the dude and I have a beautiful hot womanly woman, but I'm, kind of versatile enough in my omnivorous enough in my taste to be, and I think the boy ones are cute sometimes. I really like abs. I like kind of like the pec ab. I like that hot, like a Shane or like a Rip. I like that kind of stuff. It's hot. So
I've dated I'm same, I've dated girly boys and I've dated really masculine guys, and I'm fine with all of it. But yeah, I do. I don't know if I haven't found where I'm the most comfortable. I think
Still no?
I'm pretty chill with both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't feel like either. I feel like I could go either way depending on, how good the other person is at their part. It's sort of like dancing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you feel kind of medium?
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe you need someone else who's like real medium.
Maybe. And I never, like, I don't even have hang-ups about that. You know, that's what's
Mm-hmm.
funny to me is sometimes when people are arguing with me online and, you know, this gay bro thinks he's saying, and it's like, I'm not even a gay bro. It's not even like
yeah.
I come at it that way, you know? It's
Yeah.
just not what it is, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I see you and I as very like gender chill, I guess. Like we're very like, you can see us as a little bit mask of center or whatever, but also, you know, we're just kind of ourselves in this way where gender is not a big factor. And I think how we like express ourselves as people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not as much of a, we're not as performative. I think we just kind of are ourselves in terms of like the gender stuff a lot of the ways.
Yeah. Well, I feel like unless you're going to have sex with me or we're going to have sex, there's no reason for you to really even think about that part of me.
Right,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
It's just like, do you like me as a person?
That's why I like my bit so much about, you know, how, you know, I'm she, her, except in the bedroom where I'm a good boy because, or daddy. But it's because it's like, why do we need to know what your gender is?
Mm-hmm.
Because do we pay you differently because of that? Do we hold the door open for you or not? Do we pay for you? Like, can we hit you if you're non-binary, but not if you're a woman? Like, what exactly? Because if we're not supposed to be assuming a bunch of stuff because someone's a she or a he, then presumably we're not supposed to be assuming a bunch of stuff because you're they or anything else. So like, what exactly are we supposed to be getting from this information? Like, what do these words even mean?
Yeah, well, you kind of got close to something that I have given some thought to lately that is very controversial, but to me is something that people do need to think about. Is there's the story, you've seen Nanette, right?
Yeah.
Remember the story at the end of the her special where she got what which I think they identify as a man now. Or
They, she, who, them, I don't. There's no way, man.
well,
There may be. Hannah might be doing they now, but name's still Hannah, I believe.
is the name still Hannah? Because
Last I checked, I watched the Queer Agenda fiasco. Well, I can't talk about comedy.
you know what? I need to watch. I'm gonna do a full video on that because I want to. But
Let's watch it together and do a. Oh God!
Yeah,
These
but-
people are my colleagues.
so here's the deal: if you're operating as a man, and at the end of the special, she tells a story where she was trying to pick up basically on this guy, well, flirting with another guy's girl. You know,
she was flirting with another guy's girl.
yeah, and then the guy hit her. You know,
Yeah.
which is terrible and should not happen. But at the same time, if you're operating under man rules, you got to understand that that's
gonna
part of
happen.
being a man.
Right, and that's why I'm very like she, her, bitch, don't hit me.
Yeah.
Okay, and when I do Muay Thai, it's like, hey, remember that I'm a fucking female. Okay, please remember that in how we fight, because some of these men, I'm not nearly as strong. Most of them have better reach, whatever. But I'm intelligent, so every now and then in sparring, I would get like a good hit in on a guy, and usually most of them had been doing it way longer than me too. And so when I was at this Muay Thai gym and I would get a good hit on a guy when we were sparring, a lot of these men, their ego and the testosterone would just and they would have to like start trying to hurt me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's that kind of thing. And sometimes the chieftain, what do you call the coach, whatever, he would come over and be like, hey dude, what are you doing? It's a woman, you know. And I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, actually my gender it's like, no, what we mean right now, yes,
This is
I
where
am
I need you to
female.
remember I'm a woman. Yeah, this is
Yeah, and so, and it is like, okay, like, are you letting us know if you're they, them, does that mean you're on some kind of lower dose of hormone treatment? Because if that's true, okay, that's something that you're telling us, because that does change the equation. I think they, thems, if, you know, or people who are taking if you're a female but taking testosterone, maybe men get to hit you.
well, that's kind of where I'm at.
Or
like,
maybe it's just that they, thems can hit you, but still, but you can't hit she, hers now, but
yeah, and
maybe
you
that's
got to
what it is.
remember
You
that
can't
if
hit
you're going to
she-hers
play the
anymore.
spectrum, then you're going to play the spectrum. You can't run back to being a woman once
Right.
somebody treats you like a man,
Right.
because that's the way we as men. Like, I know, even at my age, that there is a point it gets to with other guys where it may get physical. Mm-hmm. You know, so but you learn that as a boy, you know, what kind of your parameters are and how to
Right.
stay out of that danger zone, you know, where you don't want to, you know, and that's where, like, I think a lot of people don't understand that that's when it does matter what you actually grew up as, because a lot of the things like about being a woman you learned from being a girl, you know.
Yeah.
You went through that process and that's where you learned the way that it works. Well, with men it's pecking order, and you do learn that at a point where it's kind of like, oh, if I talk this way or if I do this, there's a chance that this other man will hit me, you know. And so when you miss out on that, but then you still want to consider yourself to fully be that, it's like, not really. And I also don't buy into the fact that when a woman hits menopause and has to have any kind of hormone replacement therapy, she is now doing gender affirming care. I don't buy that.
I mean, it's more like age affirming care, because it's natural when you're older to transition. We kind of all do transition to being men a little bit, but we want to be younger
Well,
longer.
the men transition to being women.
When
You know,
men,
that's
we
why
all
they
kind
get
of meet
the
in the middle a
boobs.
little bit. Yeah, we all kind of meet in the middle a little bit. So if you want to stave off old age, as we all, you know, tend to do, then you're kind of, it's more age affirming care at that point, because it's like, no, you're an 80-year-old woman, but an 80-year-old woman is a little bit of a man more than before. You're growing more hair,
Shinny whiskers.
yeah, exactly. Not that a lot of us don't already have that shit, but like, who knows what it'll be like then. Well, and that's why I like that thing you're talking about how you're raised. You know, I like kind of like socialized as a boy, socialized as a girl, because if you were not social, like, there's so much you don't learn on either side of those things, and it's important for everyone to like recognize that. So it's like, if you do want to be in the cult of womanhood, well, recognize that you're new here. You're at the bottom of the order in terms of like knowing how this works and whatever, and maybe be a little bit humble about entering into it and kind of figuring this out and learning. Don't walk in and go, I'm the, you know, I want to be in charge around here.
Well, that's where people get insulted, and that's what they don't understand. You know, when it comes to biological, you know, males and females, that's where they get insulted by trans people, and trans people don't understand that. And it's like, you know, I've dealt with it to certain degrees where I've just felt like, I know this bitch doesn't think she's telling me how to be a man right now. You know what I mean? And that's when you will in your head just, and you can call it misgendering or whatever you want, but in your head you will do that. You will just be like, this is a woman right now.
You're being a woman. Well, and a lot of these trans dudes, you know, many of them that I've known have like, you know, because they oftentimes are in little groups. Sometimes they were all lesbians and now they're all trans men. That really does happen quite a bit. But there's a lot of them where, and they kind of know each other. Maybe they're all, you know, in some kind of little drag thing or poetry, whatever they're doing together. And then
I love how it can be either. it's
one of those
true.
kind of things.
Like,
you know, so the same hobbies that lesbians do, whatever. But a lot of them, they don't have that many men really in their lives. What they have is each other. Maybe some of them had transitioned a few years ago and some of them are now transitioning, but they're all kind of raising each other. There's a lot of trans dudes kind of raising each other, and maybe there's some gay guy a little bit around, or, you know, it's,
yeah.
but a lot of it really do need men as mentors. I think trans women tend to, the ones who are like real, you know, transsexuals, we'll say, they tend to have lots of friendships with women and help and ask them for advice on clothes and hair and makeup and everything. Some of these are just like these incel cross-dresser people who say they're trans women, and you're just like, okay, if you don't have anyone in your life who can help your makeup look better than that before you post it to Twitter going, don't I look pretty today?
It really is Buffalo Bill.
Right. I'm like, there's some accounts I am not following that pop up all the time where I'm like, I didn't need to wake up to that face.
Yeah.
I am not following that person.
Yeah.
Do I really need to mute every account who I'm like, I'm sure I do stare at it for a second. It is funny, but it's also like, I wouldn't have chosen to see all these faces.
This wouldn't have been my day.
This is not.
If I had completely scheduled this wouldn't have been my day.
It's hard to look away. It's like a traffic accident, you know, a car accident. It is hard to look away. I'm sure I look at it, and sometimes.
Well, sometimes you're also being an optimist, or I know I am. Sometimes I'm like,
I do think about it for a second. I'm like, is this person really trying at all? Is there,
you
or
know,
is
I
this?
can see it.
Why do so many people in that trans world, trans woman kind of world have those big noses?
I don't know.
What is that?
I don't know, but supposedly there might be a correlation, because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of times trans women have big penises.
Interesting.
And supposedly there
Big
might be
noses and
some
big penises go
correlation
together.
between the I guess the hormone production, or the amount of testosterone produced, or something to
Yeah.
do with basically the manliness overcorrects itself at a point.
It circles back.
Yeah, it's just
Your
something
dick's
I
too
read.
big, you go trans.
But somebody will of course watch this and then later on tell me I'm being transphobic, and it'll be like, okay, you guys, well,
I think we're pretty clearly admitting we don't really know what's going on.
Yeah,
with this.
and also-
but I love the idea that men want these bigger dicks, but if it's too big, then you just become trans.
yeah, then you want
God
to cut
circles it back.
You want to invert it.
This is big enough to make a good pussy now.
Yeah, this is big enough. I want it inside of me.
Yeah.
Permanently. But yeah, well, here's the thing, though. I think that if more trans people would be fun about conversations like this,
Yes.
which I know you said you've had experiences with trans women like that, and so have I, that were fun. Like, because your co-host from the
Gender
podcast,
Fluids, yeah.
Gender Fluids,
It was
used to
so
be fun. Like
Anyone
that.
wants to go back and listen to a trans chick and a lesbian just having fun, talking about sex and gender and all this kind of stuff. Like, go listen to that. It was great. And I wanted us to be able to talk about some of the controversies, because I was like, we love each other, like we're both intelligent people, but we definitely have some different perspectives on things, and we're coming to it from the lesbian and the trans chick place, and she just wouldn't do it.
Well, a lot of respect comes from not bullshitting each other.
Yeah.
So if you're having those conversations and whatever else, it's even easier to see them as what they are. You know what I mean? As like, yeah, you are a woman, you're a trans woman, and I fully do see that, and I fully get it, and I have because like when I think about my friends, like my closest trans friends, I don't even think of them as trans unless it comes up in the conversation.
Yeah.
But, I was also raised a particular way, being Mexican. And so I am very chivalrous with them. And like in my head, they're just women. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I open the door for them. I'm like completely make sure they're okay and stuff like that. But then there will be moments, where they'll remind me, because either society pisses them off or something physical happens for them. Like one time, one of my best friends told me, she was like, baby, are we really friends? This is a long time ago. And I was like, yes, of course we're really friends. She was like, I tell you anything? I said, yes, you could tell me anything. She was like, absolutely anything. I said, absolutely anything. She was like, good, bitch, because these balls are burning right now. She started like, she took a moment to adjust herself. And it was just me and her. Yeah. But it was super funny and super fun. But like, outside of moments like that, when I'm hanging out with my trans friends, I don't think about what their biology is. They're just what they present as to me. One of my closest trans, because, when I was younger, it was mostly trans women that I was friends with. And then, when I was in LA, that's where I really started to have friends that were trans men. Mm-hmm. And they were gay as well. And we had to have a couple conversations. Like one of them, I was talking to him like what he was, a gay man. I was giving him the she and the her. And then he was like, can you not do that? And I was like, we probably shouldn't hang out if that's the way we're going to go. Because this is the way I talk to gay men. Yeah. So if you're supposed to be a gay man and I'm treating you like a gay man and you want me to treat you as something other than that, I'm not here for it.
Well, and that goes back to like the question you first asked me about how kind of getting over it or whatever. And it's like, because more and more in my closest friendship, I had to start not saying what I actually thought, and I wasn't allowed to ask questions. I mean, I was told all of the woke things. And when you want to know about like the caricature that Republican, like demagogue, polemic kind of people paint is real. Yeah. Like the character is real, and it's like they don't even actually know how far it goes in terms of the Marxists who hate America. All the kind of like all that stuff is real, and I'm fine with that. I love being friends with them. I agree with them on all kinds of stuff. I disagree with them on like all kinds of stuff too. But if I can't have my opinions, if I can't speak the truth, like it's very hard to have a real relationship. And it's like a partnership, a romantic partnership where you're not being yourself and not telling the truth or something. Like it's not, you can't really have that work.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a business partner too, or someone, you know, like, and so I more and more is like, I'm censoring myself. I'm censoring myself all the time. And when I do try to be honest, you don't accept it. It's not like I've just censored myself. You know what I mean? I'm just being a coward. Like, I have tried, and you throw a fit.
Yeah, I won't hang out with anybody at this point in my life that I can't be my authentic self with.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not worth it, you know, and I feel like that with the people around me. If you don't feel comfortable being yourself around me, I'm sorry that that's what's happening for you. You know, I'm sorry if I give you any kind of vibe like that, because for me, I can hear anything. I don't get triggered. I don't get mad at people. I always tell people that I feel like I learn right past my trigger.
Right.
So if something triggers me and then I keep my mouth shut,
Yeah.
don't react to it. Just keep my mouth shut. Let them keep talking.
I wonder what else they're going to say.
I'll find the commonality right after usually. And I'll be, okay, okay. Yeah, that does. I can see how, you know, and even if I completely don't agree with it, I can still at least see how you see it that way.
Right.
And that's all I need for our friendship to
Right.
continue. You know,
It's
I don't
exactly.
need to.
There's a really cute story in Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey's little memoir that he put out. But it's about this. I think it's like these two guys in Africa or something. I'm going to butcher the story, I'm sure. But I think they're arguing basically over whether sex work is cool or not. Something like that. But they're really getting into it and like facing each other and like having this conversation. And then Matthew is like kind of nervous because he's not sure if he should side with his buddy or this other guy who's hosting them or something like that. And finally he comes in and he says, well, I see so-and-so's point because of this, but I see so-and-so's point because that. Like, he's trying to kind of like help them or whatever. And they're like, no, shut up. Like, what we're doing, it's not about I am right and he is right. It's about, do you understand? Mm-hmm. And they're having this thing where like, we want to understand each other. So we are disagreeing. We understand that we're disagreeing. We're hearing each other and we're having this out. And we are just trying to understand each other. And we're not trying to walk away going like someone has to be right and wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what I was like, yes, I love that. Do you understand? I always like, you know, when I would work at Trader Joe's, I would just let people talk to me. I would work the samples and just someone was in the Tea Party back in the day, whatever. And I would let people be politically androgynous and not kind of let on exactly what my politics are, but like agree with the things I could agree with and like listen to him talk and maybe push back a little bit here and there on some things, but just to kind of be like, well, I've heard this. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
And like you get way more out of people that way and you get to learn more. And also, if you're doing that and you're listening to them, then you can kind of also steer them with your little questions, with the little things you say. You can also kind of have your influence.
Yeah.
If you have any worth having, you can do that through some questions that you ask, some kind of like, oh, well, I've thought about it this way. You know, what do you think about that?
You can also just shore up your own beliefs. You know, sometimes it's like, or your own argument. Like, you know, if you were to ever come up against somebody that was like that in a, you know, debate way or, you know, where you're not just listening, you know, that's a good way to do it is because you can think, okay, well, what would I say to a person that had that opinion if I was in a situation where I actually had to defend what my position was?
Right, exactly.
Right now, I'm just listening. So I just take it in and then later on, or for comedy, because I use that for comedy a lot of times where it's like, I'll ingest whatever the person's saying and I'll be like, what would the punchline for me be to that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then I take their opinion and my punchline and that creates the joke.
Yeah, or sometimes you take their opinion and go, they're wrong about that opinion, but here's my opinion, right? And then what's my joke? Exactly. Like we don't, you know, you're not going to convince everybody anyway. So why it's not your moral responsibility to try. A lot of times you can just kind of take in what other people are saying and do whatever with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't understand why once it became, and I think that's so much of what those of us kind of who are frustrated with the woke, the social justice progressives, whatever you want to call them, the illiberal progressives. We're like, hey, you guys won't let us talk anymore. Like you won't let people ask questions. You're also just in terms of, I mean, there's just kind of a weird, like, I was just hearing someone talk today about how on the right, when there's misinformation, it's because a bunch of idiots like believe something and then kind of started spreading it up, you know, like they said it and then someone's copying whatever. But on the left, it's top down. It's like coordinated efforts to kind of smear something, or like, remember Joe Rogan is on horse dewormer, even though that won the Nobel Peace Prize for being used in humans.
Yeah.
And even though they're all on ketamine, if this is a horse thing, or that Trump drank bleach, or said that there were good people on both sides, and all those kind of things, when really he denounced, the white supremacists, but it was clearly just saying on either side of the statue debate or whatever, but those are coordinated efforts. And so when you start to see the institutions of power having these coordinated efforts, and your own friends won't let you have a conversation about the propaganda that they believe in, it's like, I'm always trying to figure out, because it's so fun with Israel Palestine, right? Because if you got friends like accounts, you got these strong opinions, you got this propaganda and this propaganda and this, and I'm like, yep, you all make good points.
I've noticed my Twitter is very much pro. Let's see, how does it work? My Twitter is very much pro-Palestine. My Instagram is pro-Israel.
Really? I would say I have both, but I would say it's more the other way for me.
Yeah, no, I don't know, and I've tried to figure out how I curated both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, how did I? And I personally don't really have an opinion outside of the fact that I am aware enough to know that like Hamas would not be down for me on any level. So I just cannot. I mean, I'm not saying I wish what's happening on them to continue.
On the Palestinians, sure, absolutely.
But I'm not going to jump in and be like, hey.
Hey, Hamas. Hamas, we love you.
I'm not doing it.
They're not my pals, and I'm not a big fan of Islamism. I think that it's not great, and I don't think anyone who likes the things that we enjoy about the West should be, it's not just, sometimes war is war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that some of the problem with Israel, the way that went down, it's like, all right, the British Empire was on the winning side. They got to decide what to do with the Ottoman Empire now that was gone. So they told the Jews, all right, you guys can have this land. Yes, there are some other people living there, but you'll figure something out. Try to be reasonable. But this was like post World War II is kind of the moment, like that in that time when we were all mad at Hitler. That was the time when we were going, hey, no, this is going to be the post-history world. We're not going to do conquering anymore. We're doing the map. This is the maps and everyone stay. Not that everything has quite stayed, but we kind of like, that's kind of like the vibe that we had as a world. We were like, okay, no more. That was history when people did that. We're not, that's bad guys now. But Jews, you do that with Israel, then that's, but then, you know what?
And after that, we're done.
They used to live there.
After that, we're done.
They used
not
to live
realizing
there.
it would go on
Everyone's really
forever.
bad. They don't have anyone else. There's a lot of great reasons to give it to them. I still say give them Mississippi.
I hate you. Give them Mississippi.
Well, they would do a much better job. If anybody could clean that hellhole up, it would be the Jews. And no one likes the people living there. That's the most racist, shittiest part of this country. Just knock out those people.
Let's see. I was just in
you say that on
Mississippi. I gotta watch myself because.
No, I love Mississippi. I also was in Mississippi lately. I do comedy there and I enjoy it. And there's fine folks there.
Oh
They're
yeah,
a good time.
you were. We have the same. Poor Chris Gillespie or Krangus Gillespie just got it.
Hey, the audience loved me.
Yeah, they were great.
They were great.
The juke
I
joint.
love drunk old white people. There's nothing wrong.
Where are you from?
Houston.
You're a Texan, native
Texan.
Yeah.
And from the hood in Houston. Yeah.
Well, that alone should tell people like sometimes things should be different. Because I'm gay Mexican from Arizona. You're white lesbian from Texas.
Gay Mormon from Texas, but also from Houston in the hood, where it was extremely diverse. In fact, I think the most diverse county in the maybe world, but definitely in the country, in A-Leaf. And so that's like, I'm from a time when, like, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, they certainly taught slavery was bad. I saw a ridiculous tweet the other day suggesting that, as if like when we were growing up, they were like pro-slavery,
Yeah,
and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was never.
Okay, but
and I was in Arizona. If there was any place that was going to say it was okay.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Mississippi or Montana or something. I don't know. But no, I mean, it was very much like we definitely belabored. In fact, most of American history was about how horrible slavery was.
Yeah.
I would say we never got past World War II. We would always like start running out of time. We would do slavery. We would do like Revolution, slavery, Civil War. And then we would always kind of be like, oh shit, we better learn about the Depression and the World War I and II. Okay, well, we're out of time. We never got to the 50s. I'd never once, because you do like every 3 years, you do U.S. history. We never once got to the 50s. We only talked about the Revolution and then slavery. So, but what was my point about this?
It gets real sticky around that area too, though. So you kind of can't blame them if it was by design, because it gets real sticky at certain points.
No, what was I going to say, though? I was history class. Fuck.
You're from Houston. You grew up in a time
Oh,
when...
well, I don't know about you, but to me, it was like, everything was like very Martin Luther King. We were all like, slavery was very gay. We didn't do it. It was very déclassé is the word I'm looking for. It was like, we lived in the post time of that. So we were all, it was a very diverse thing. Like I said, maybe it's like kind of 23% Caucasian, whatever, 23% Mexican, mostly Mexican at the time. I mean, we could say Hispanic, but there weren't as many Hondurans there yet.
Yeah.
And then like 23% Black, and then the rest kind of Asian and whatever. And so it was an extremely diverse place. And I just thought we did live in Martin Luther King's dream. Like we were a little bit racist against Indians, a little bit. But I think that was just because this one girl had burns, and that wasn't great. And she was also a thief. So the first Indian we all knew was like stealing our stuff all the time. So that was unfortunate. So we were a little bit racist against Indians. But other than that, it was very much like, and even then we weren't, we like knew it was wrong and we shouldn't be.
So you guys had actual Indian?
Yeah.
Okay, because, when I was growing up, Indian was still native in Arizona.
I don't know what we would have called him. I don't know if we had any natives.
Yeah, because, I grew up right near a reservation, like literally the native kids. Because, I was just hanging out with the native guy when I was, he was a comic and I mentioned something about my town, and Sackatone being right next to it. And he was like, actually, our res used to get bussed into Casa Grande as well. We're just not as well known as the Sackatone natives. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know that. He was like, yeah, but so me and him didn't go to school at the same time anyway. So that might have been instated after, because I just remember the Sackatone kids coming in. But yeah. When people would talk about Indians in Arizona at that time, which now everybody knows it's native, but at that time it was Indian or American Indian, and that's just the way people would say it, so you'd be like, oh, the Indians.
The American Native, which is what I think we should call everyone kind of like American Africans, American Europeans, American, or you can get specific, American Irish, American whatever, if you know it. But I think American Natives is good. Kind of put the American first. I think that would be like a nice way to handle all of this personally, but they're not. It's like the midget community where they're not all settled on what they prefer to be called. And some of them are like, and it's kind of like that Inuit thing. Like it became PC to say Inuit, but a lot of the Eskimo people are like, no, we're not Inuits. That's like a specific thing. And just because we're wearing the little hoods or whatever, I don't know how you point to them. And just because we're eating all this fish and wearing the little hoods and living in igloos doesn't mean we're Inuits. That's actually right. So like,
yeah, I guess it would be like calling all natives Pima. Or all natives Navajo. You know what I mean? You're calling somebody just one tribe. And
exactly.
It's like, we're not all
people
that.
would do that. People kind of do those weird overcorrections. But, there are people who are in the little people community who want to be called midgets. Some people want to be called little people. Some people want to be called dwarfs, even though was supposed to be a specific thing. Other people want to be called people of diminutive size. Those are the queer plus of their community.
Some people want to be called a spina bifida baddie. I don't know if you've met Lila Hart. She's a comedian. And she technically qualifies as a little person, but it's not dwarfism. It's she has spina bifida. And so, she only grew to be so tall, but she's still part of that community. Yeah. But she, like, on all her branding, she's the spina bifida baddie. And she is really pretty. She's a really cute girl. But I always love that she's the spina bifida baddie, you know?
Yeah, it's fun to own your shit. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we got to have this chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to have you on again sometime. I wanted to have you on so that we could talk about just in general, kind of the community and where we see things.
Didn't you want to have a lesbian on for some specific reason?
There was, but I can't remember. We can have you back.
Yeah, we'll watch
I think we were going to talk about the bars,
Oh, well, I mean, just for a quick thing, I want to shout out the fact that we are up to 31, because you were saying that, because at first, when the Lesbian Bar Project started, we had 15. There were only 15 around the whole country. That's crazy. And then the next list that came out, it was up to 21, because people were like, okay, if people are going to care about this, we'll start some bars. So the fact that we're up to 31, and in Austin, I hear that in a couple of months we are getting our first, it's going to be a sports bar that only plays women's sports. So not technically a lesbian bar, but let's be real, you're probably going to be able to find some lesbians. Yeah. It's probably a good way if you want there to be a more women focused space. You don't have to call it women only. I mean, and look, some men love women. I'm glad that men watch women's sports more. And it is true that whatever is on at the bar, you're going to watch. So it's good for that to be happening. But we're about to get our own women's sports bar in Austin. That's awesome. We might call that 32. The things are looking up for lesbians.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I would like to have you on again in the future, and we can talk about some specific topics. But on
How
this
things
one,
are going bad for lesbians.
yeah.
Because I would love to talk about that.
Yeah, believe me, I want to get to all that. So if you're open to coming back, I would like to have you back on, and maybe we can talk about some specific LGBT issues and not just the general. But I just wanted for my audience to get to know you and get the general of just because I think people do have this idea of what we all are, and I think in a lot of cases, lesbians.
I know a lot of based lesbians. I'm just going to put it that way.
Yeah?
I know some crazy ones, but a lot of people, if you call yourself a lesbian and you're female, then you're you're probably not definitely, but if you're, I shouldn't say if you call yourself a lesbian. If you're actually a lesbian and you're female, then you probably are going to be pretty reasonable and structured in your thinking about these kinds of things. Most of us are actually, we won't all talk about it, but I guess you'll know if they haven't gone they them.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to talk. That's what I want to talk about on the next one for sure. Because and we can get a lot more into that, because that's something that I would like to hear from you. Because obviously, that's not my wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I can't speak to that because I only know what I see. And like I also said in the video that I did about Pride, there used to be a lot more of a division between gay and lesbian, as far as the men and the women.
Queer shit has pushed us together, man.
It really
so we can't afford. Yeah, remember when the problem was that you and I wouldn't want to be friends?
Yeah.
Fucking gays with your... whatever. Even though we helped y'all with the AIDS, whatever. Neither of us was, whatever, having AIDS or attending to people. But yeah, that was the big thing, lesbians versus gays. And now I'm just look, or bisexual. We all hated the bis.
Yeah, the bis make a decision.
Look, LGBT, I want that. I just want Q plus, Q ... times 2 and sometimes more. I think that's where we draw the line.
There were less people to shun at that point.
There really?
But it was just sort of
Yeah, exactly. You're always going to have to shun some people in your community no matter what. So
the lesbians thought the gays were too sexual. The gays thought the lesbians were too prudish. We all thought the bisexuals needed to make a decision, and we're just
breaking
greedy.
our hearts all the time.
Yeah, it was just
everyone's so mad at us for being upset about bi people. It's they broke our hearts constantly. Jesus Christ. Or it's easier for them to be straight and be religious again. I mean, come on. We were hurt.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Stay unbothered.